Welcome to our study of Ruth. We are in chapter 3, and we've read verses 12 and 13, but I would like Pete to go back and read those again for us.
And now it is true that I am your near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto you the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to you, then I will do the part of a kinsman to you. As the Lord lives, lie down until the morning.
So this is Boaz's response to Ruth after she's asked him to spread his skirt over her, and she's made known to him that he is a near kinsman. And I'd like you to take a look at your outline on page 8 under letter F, and let's just look at these points here because they're too good to pass up. Boaz here he demonstrates his integrity by following the proper protocol. In other words, he makes it known to Ruth that there is a nearer kinsman than himself, and he doesn't make any attempt to usurp the redeeming rights of a closer relative. Now, you think about that kind of integrity and how he could have taken advantage of the situation at hand. But we don't see that with Boaz at all, do we? We just see a man of God acting with integrity in this situation and handling so gently and respectfully, from my perspective, a young lady who has submitted herself and put herself in a very vulnerable position at his feet asking for help. And so Boaz responded to Ruth because of who she was, not what he could gain. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but it doesn't appear by any account that Boaz was a man that was seeking his own personal gain. And I think about a person who has a true servant's heart. That person serves the Lord, not for what he can get from the Lord or not what he can get from other people, be it monetary gains, be it personal accolades or pride, but he does it because he has a heart of love. You know, we have some examples around us of people who have servants' hearts. And to be fair with you, they're rare. A servant's heart is rare because a servant's heart does not in any way seek his personal gain. And I believe Boaz is operating in this manner. Do you know what? For that matter, Ruth is too. So the giving hearts of Boaz and Ruth are rewarded with fruit that remains. God honors hearts that are towards him, that have a heart to serve him. Fruit will be produced. We're going to talk about that a little bit later this evening. So with that said, he has given Ruth some instruction here, and he's told her to lie down until morning. Now, to me, verse 14 stands out because I want you to see where she laid. Pay attention to verse 14 here.
And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came into the floor.
Now you think about that. She lay at his feet until morning. Our last session, I don't know if you remember, Pete pointed out that she didn't come lay beside him. There was nothing provocative about that. She had already been given a promise here by Boaz that somebody is going to perform the duty of a kinsman redeemer. But she didn't take it upon herself to seek a position that had not yet been given to her. She continued to remain humble and laid at that man's feet. to me, that just speaks of her virtue. The as we look at the top of page 8 in your outline, that moral excellence, how that was a force for her. You know, sometimes I think about that word force and I think of just outward strength, like a forceful man who's able to pick up something that I couldn't even think about picking up. But force can also be, you can be forceful with your influence. You can be forceful with your character, speaking louder. You remember how we've talked about this time and time again since the beginning of Ruth, how your walk talks louder than your talk talks? That's, to me, was speaking loudly.
Actually, this force, I believe, as you see with the virtuous woman through the Bible, is an inward force to do the right thing. You understand? You know, I was doing some research on this and just looking out of curiosity what I could find, you know, concerning Boaz and Ruth. Was Boaz married? Had he been married? And these type things. And what was the age of Boaz? And of course, there's nothing tangible there other than some Jewish tradition which believes that he was about 50 years older than Ruth. Now, to me, that speaks volumes from Ruth's perspective. You understand? In that, and he mentions you didn't go after younger people. Her intention is not on what's going to please me per se. Her intention is this getting redeemed, getting Naomi redeemed, and along with that, she's being redeemed. Okay, and the thing about it is this redemption. You raise up a seed to carry the name of the dead person to rise up in that person's stead. We're going to look at this a little later, how the inheritance goes through that seed, which is going to speak great things of Boaz. And so when I look at what could possibly have been going on here, you talking about integrity on two people's part, his as well as hers. They had pure motives. And an interesting thing, I just thinking of the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, when you look at those 16 attributes of love that's mentioned, one of the things that stood out to me here is it's not self-seeking. It's seeking the best interest of all concerned. And this is definitely what you see with Boaz and Ruth.
We've already looked at, in the previous verse there, how Boaz pointed out the heart of Ruth. He was looking at the heart. You know, when you really stop and think about it, there's not an age on the heart. The physical organ has an age attached to it. But we're spirit beings. We're going to live forever. How do you put an age on eternity? You don't. There's no time limit. And so here's the thing that I think that we need to start considering here is looking past the physical. Let's just get to the heart of the matter. And there won't be an age divide. There won't be a racial divide. There won't be a gender divide. We're just talking about the heart here. So with all that said,
verse 15.
Boaz is a good man here.
Also he said, bring the veil that you have upon you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her, and she went into the city.
You think about how this man is blessing her, helping her out when she's gleaning, making sure handfuls are dropped on purpose, making sure that she's getting up in time, that she's not seen on that threshing floor, so that no damage is done to the character. but he sends her away full. He blesses her. Now this is the man that we know how this all ends. He's her redeemer, their family's redeemer. Now you think about how our Redeemer has treated us. He blesses us. The Redeemer blesses, you understand. He gives us far more than we could ever have on our own, than we could ever even think about. And so I understand he's taking care of her physically here. He's respecting and honoring her objective of helping her mother-in-law, blessing her.
And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Who are you, my daughter?" And she told her all that the man had done to her. I think that should be, "How are you, my daughter?" not "Who." Mm-hmm. Okay. And she said, "These 6 measures of barley he gave me, for he said to me, 'Go not empty to your mother-in-law.'"
Isn't that beautiful? Honoring her desire, the desire of her heart, was that when she first started out, she asked Naomi, "May I go glean in a field?" What was the desire of her heart? To provide for her mother-in-law. So here he is coming along beside her and assisting her and helping her fulfill that desire of her heart. You know, you think about what true love and true commitment does. It's not a competition, it's a completion. And Boaz was helping fulfill that desire that Ruth had in her heart. Verse 18.
Then she said, Naomi said, "Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he has finished the thing this day."
Now, we've talked about this before, about Boaz. But to me, that is so beautiful, because this Redeemer here does not give empty promises. His word means something. What he says he's going to do, what he says he's going to do immediately. He's not going to tarry on that thing. And that's what, to me, Naomi is telling Ruth here. You can be assured that this man is going to follow up on what he says. You know, we can earn a reputation for being a person who's true to our word, who will act upon what we say we're going to do. A reputation for doing it immediately, not letting the thing rest until the matter is completed. That's how I believe our Jesus is. Our Jesus is one that we can rest in, knowing that everything is finished in Him. It's taken care of in Him. We find our rest in Him. Now I want to say with that verse 18 too, I hit on it, I don't remember when, back at one of our early sessions here. To me, and I understand different personalities can be at work, but to me there's a lesson in here. When we start something, let us finish it. Let us see it through to the end, and as much as in our ability to do it quickly, to not tarry on it.
If you think about it, Ruth has just come in that morning. That night is when Boaz has said to her what he would do. And so Naomi is saying that morning, he's going to take care of that today. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be the next day. This man will act promptly. And obviously he does.
Obviously, yes. When you look on page 9 of your outline, look at number 1 at the top. Integrity manifests itself in right actions. That's a powerful statement, but how true it is. I used to tell my young ones when I taught elementary school, integrity is, what that really means is doing the right thing even when nobody's looking. And I could have added it in there and doing it when you're supposed to do it. You know, when we are, the Lord lays something on our heart to do. He doesn't expect us to wait a few months or years or whatever the case may be until we come into agreement with it. There may be a need that needs to be fulfilled that we don't understand or aren't privy to the circumstances, but that need might be something that's urgent, that somebody else is really experiencing some difficulties that you have the power to help them out. So just think about that. Integrity manifests itself in right actions. You don't have to tell somebody else that you're full of integrity or that you're a man or woman of integrity. People will know by what you do or what you don't do. So Ruth could rest in the integrity of Boaz, knowing that she and Naomi would be cared for properly. I believe that Boaz must have had a reputation, right, of being a man of his word, of being a man who does not rest until the thing is completed, until it's finished. There are people, if you start paying attention, you'll see people around you that operate in that manner. And you know what? When you get in a bind, those are the people you want to call, because you know they're going to help you when you need the help. They're not going to say, well, I can get to that in a couple weeks, or if you call me back in, next month. That's not how, I don't believe Boaz operated that way.
Just think of the old adage, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And you find that things may not always be convenient, but when the need arises, you'll know who your friends are, you understand? Mm-hmm. And you think about it, how many people in this don't answer this, but you think about how many people that you would classify as people of integrity that are going to do right, they're going to act promptly. And then while you're trying to think about them, you examine your own heart. Am I one of those who will do what's right, who will act promptly, or am I a procrastinator? Just keep putting things off, and one of these days, And we have to be what we're looking for other people to be.
That's good.
It's the old golden rule.
Right.
You do to others not like they do to you, but like you want them to do to you. And this is the way you treat people. Now, over the years, we've counseled people in that very thing. Well, they did me wrong. Well, that doesn't give you the right to do them wrong. Well, what am I supposed to do? I say, well, treat them like you want to be treated. But that's not fair. So I say, life's not fair. You got to suck it up. You understand? Do what's right. Doing what's right is not dependent upon whether other people are doing what's right. You maintain your integrity. You do what's right regardless of what the people around you are doing.
I think about what Boaz has committed himself to already, to being the kinsman redeemer. And really what the kinsman redeemer does, from my perspective, is they give not to get, but they just give, period, to their loss, really. They just give. They give to give. Really beautiful.
Well, what to me is so interesting about this, and here again, I can't give you an age difference, but it appears that she is at the young prime of her life, and he is in the latter years of his life. You understand? And yet, both are willing to commit for the good of both concerned. I'll help you, you help me. You understand? It's not you help me. but I'll help you. You help me. Now, how many of you know when you get to be my age, you're not thinking about having babies and taking care of diapers and toddlers and all this type thing. You know, you love your grandkids and you're happy to see them, and then you're somewhat relieved when the stress gets off of you of trying to keep up with them. I remember my grandmother. Her husband had died. Grandpa had died, and she was living by herself, and she had a colored TV, and the thing would, she'd keep the grandkids, and they'd go over and turn knobs and get the color all messed up. That was back when things were analog, not digital, okay? And she called my brother over there and asked him, said, can you fix my TV? So he went over there and got the color back like it's supposed to be, and he said, Grandma, you're going to have to tell those kids not to do that. You don't let them turn those knobs. She said, they're too fast for me. So you get a picture of what I'm saying. Boaz, when he should be in the, I suppose, the comfortable years, if you want to call it that, of his life, to where now he's done his duty and all this, and so now we're going to enjoy things. But yet he takes a tremendous responsibility on him. Pretty interesting when you think about it.
It is. You remember when we first looked at Ruth and Naomi, and Ruth just poured out her heart to Naomi. She clave to Naomi, and how Ruth spoke those covenant words to Naomi. And we mentioned about how that covenant was, what I have is yours if you need it. And what you have is mine if I need it. And here this lady is again, putting herself in a position of, would you please enter into this covenant with me? Will you please cover me? What you have, I need. What I have, I'll gladly give it to you if you want it and if you need it.
Tell you something else to look at is she didn't go to wealthy Boaz begging. She went into the field to work, not for a handout. So she was not looking for a sugar daddy. You understand? She had a pure heart. And he had a pure heart. Both of their motives were right. Okay. He wasn't looking for some young woman. You understand? It was pure.
And we're going to see as we begin chapter 4 that Boaz is a man of his word, and he went to start to take care of this thing the very next day.
Then Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spoke of came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down.
Now, isn't that something? I don't believe things just happen by chance. I believe the Lord orchestrates things. And so there he is sitting at the gate. And we're going to find that the gate of the city is an important place. It's where the transactions of the city, if you will, the governmental things of the city took place. And so he went to the headquarters, so to speak. And it was true to his character. He wasted no time in taking care of what he told Ruth he would take care of. And so he saw this relative who was a nearer relative, a nearer kinsman. And he invited him to come sit down and speak to him.
And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, You sit down here, and they sat down.
You think about it, Boaz must have been a man of clout to where people would listen to him. And
you think about it, it's like any place, I guess the best way we could relate to it would be like a court complex, where you have your clerk of court, your magistrate, and all these type things, where official business can be called on, even register of deeds and things of this nature. The city gate was a place where all this could take place, and you're going to find that what he's getting ready to do is enter into a legal transaction. It's important to know that. And so these 10 elders are witnesses to this legal transaction. Okay?
As we keep on reading, you're going to see that Boaz did not try to manipulate anything here. He just speaks the facts to the nearer kinsman so that he can make a clear decision about what he's going to do so that everybody can see.
And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, who has come again out of the country of Moab, is selling a parcel of the land which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise you, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me that I may know. For there is none to redeem it besides you, and I'm after you. And he said, I will redeem it.
So here when we see that word redeem, remember it's purchasing. So right here what Boaz has just presented to this relative is, do you want to purchase this land? And in purchasing this land, you would be redeeming it for Naomi. Remember, Elimelech was Naomi's husband. So let's keep that in mind.
Well, let me define this a little bit more, okay? A land needed to be redeemed if you owed a debt that you couldn't pay. And so your creditors are taking that property, whatever, as a debt. But if there's someone if you have a kinsman who has the ability and the willingness and all to get you out of that bad situation that you're in, then they can redeem you or pay that ransom, so to speak, that debt. They're paying that debt in full, which is making you debt-free. You're not under obligation then. And this is what this is all about. If you think about it, Naomi probably was not a lady of means when she returned to Bethlehem. Had she been, Ruth would not have been gleaning.
Right.
You with me? I mean, gleaning was somewhat of a manual task, and you're humbling yourself just by being out there gleaning. You're portraying the fact that I don't have the means and all to support myself, so I'm trying to find something to eat. You follow me? Mm-hmm. And so this just gives you a little insight, because it's easy to drop this unless you've been through the Pentateuch and understand what the redemption is about, that if one is in debt and he sells himself or his property, then he can redeem. If something happens, he has a windfall or whatever, then he can redeem himself. Then that person has to sell back. Or if he has a kinsman who is willing to redeem him, then that person must sell. And so these are things you need to understand when we're talking about redeeming. Naomi and Ruth are in a tough spot. And so they need outside help, which can come from a kinsman who's willing, okay?
In fact, if we take a look, you remember reading in Leviticus, and let's go back to chapter 25. And look at that.
Start with verse 23. The Lord says, the land shall not be sold forever. The land is mine. For you're strangers and sojourners with me. Always remember that. You just think you own property. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, right? He said, in all the land of your possession, you shall grant a redemption for the land. If your brother has grown poor and has sold some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then he shall redeem that which his brother sold. Okay? That's the basic thing that we're wanting to show you in this. So evidently, this is a situation with Naomi. She's needing to get herself in a position to where she is not in a debt obligation, okay? And that the land, remember when they went into the promised land? Yeah. The land was apportioned out. Each tribe got an allotment, then each family in the tribe got an allotment. And that allotment, that possession was handed down from one generation to another generation. It was a perpetual thing for them. And so in this case, you would lose that. Elimelech would be just wiped out. Everything's gone, unless you can find somebody to redeem and keep that name going. Okay? A little bit ahead of myself, but we'll catch back up, okay? So this guy says, all right, I'll redeem it. Mm-hmm. Then Boaz said, the day that you buy the field of the hand of Naomi, you must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess. In other words, when you redeem Naomi, Ruth comes, it's a package deal, okay? Yeah. The wife of the dead, you must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead. This is small line, okay? To raise up, note this, the name of the dead upon his inheritance. You got that? Mm-hmm. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar or ruin my own inheritance. So, I'm giving you the right to redeem yourself. I cannot redeem it. In other words, he's refusing to redeem because he's not willing to jeopardize inheritance. Okay? You want to talk about this? And then
we've looked at this in detail here, because at first glance it would be easy to make the assumption that he knew that Ruth was a Moabitess. And, we've talked about how the Moabites weren't allowed to go before the congregation of the Lord for 10 generations. Remember, we looked at that together. So there was a stigma attached. You could jump to the conclusion of, nah, I don't want to have anything to do with that Moabitess. But I think there's a whole lot more involved in this of why he made the decision that he did. First off, I want to just remind you some important things about a redeemer. There were 3 important aspects involved to being a redeemer. First was being a kinsman, and what that means is being related. Next is having the ability. You have the means to do it. So this man that Boaz was speaking to was the nearest kinsman to Elimelech and Naomi. Obviously, he had means because he was willing to purchase the land. But the third aspect involved in redemption is willingness. if you are willing to redeem. And we see that this relative was not willing to redeem. Now, we're going to see that Boaz is willing to redeem. And I want to point out some obvious things before we get back in our next section and talk about the man that chose not to redeem. Boaz accepted the outcast, if you will, by accepting Ruth the Moabitess. Now I want you to think about our Redeemer, Jesus Christ, who not only accepted us, Gentiles, but the bigger picture was he accepted us, sinners, paid the debt and penalty that we couldn't afford to pay, and gave us a new name, saints. That's a beautiful point to end on. When we come back together, I want us to take a deeper look at this near kinsman that chose not to redeem.